In this video, I'm going to be modeling for you a new strategy that we are using to compare fractions. So in the last video and the last couple of weeks, we've been comparing fractions that already have a common numerator or already have a common denominator. And we also use the halves benchmark. Well, if you see here, these don't have a common numerator and they don't have a common denominator. So I can't use that strategy. And I can't use the halves benchmark because half for 6 is 3/6, so this is greater. And half for 8 is 4/8, and this is greater. Well, they're both on the same side of 1/2. They're both more than a half, so I can't use that strategy. So the strategy we've learned is I'm going to make them have a common numerator, or I'm going to make them have a common denominator because I know what to do then. So I'm going to walk you through those steps of what we do. So for my first one here, I'm going to do common numerator. So I am going to circle the numerators, and that's just going to keep me focused on what I'm trying to do here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create equivalent fractions here, but they're going to end up with the same numerator. So since my numerator here is 5, I'm going to count by 5s, and it's going to end up getting me a numerator that this one is going to have too eventually. So watch along. So I'm going to count by 5s, the first maybe 5 or 6. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Okay, there's my first few that this numerator could turn into. All right, now I'm going to count by 7s. So 7, and I always want to look and see if I make a match. So 7, 14, no match yet. 21, 28, and 35. Let's see here. Oh, no match yet. And that's going to happen sometimes. So I'm just going to do a few more. And I'm going to keep doing it until I get a match. And this is where knowing your math facts really helps. So let me do one more here. 30, because I'm counting by 5s. And 7 more here would be 42. No match yet. Let me do one more. 35. Oh, there it is. There's the match. I'm going to make both of these have a numerator of 35. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to multiply this 5 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, because it was the 7th one that I figured out. So the part here that's tricky is some 4th graders only want to multiply the top, but I have to multiply the bottom too because this is going to give me an equivalent fraction. I want to use this fraction just in a different representation of it. So I did 7 because it was my 7th one here that I listed. So 7 times 5 is 35. And 6 times 7 is 42. So 5, 6, and 35, 42s, 42nds are equivalent fractions, okay, because they have the same relationship here. And we've learned that a little bit in our equivalent fraction practice. Now I'm going to find an equivalent fraction for 7/8, but it's going to have that 35 numerator. So for this one, I actually have to multiply it by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have to multiply it by 5 because this was my 5th one here. So again, multiply the numerator and the denominator so I can have that equivalent fraction. 7 times 5 is 35. And this is good news because I wanted the common numerator. And 8 times 5 is 40. Okay, so now this is where the thinking comes in. Common numerator tends to be harder because you're comparing the size of the pieces. Here I'm using 35 pieces, and here I'm using 35 pieces, but it's the size of the pieces or the units that matter. Always try to remind your 4th grader and yourself, the smaller the denominator, the larger the pieces, and that's tricky to keep in your mind. But the smaller denominator actually means the larger pieces. That's thinking, I have a pizza and I have 40 pieces in it. Here my pizza has 42. I have to fit more pieces. That means I got to get smaller. So since this is 35 bigger pieces and 35 smaller pieces, 35 40ths is larger, which then also means 7/8 is larger. So 7/8 is larger than 5/6. Okay? All right, now we are going to do the same strategy, but we are now going to do common denominator. And the thing that's cool is we're going to end up with this being greater no matter what strategy you use. So here I'm doing common denominator. So I'm going to circle the denominator just to remind myself what I'm focusing on. And now this time, just like I counted by 5s and 7s, I'm going to count by 6 and 8. So I'm going to do the first few, 6, 12, 18, 24, 30. And again, this is where it helps to know your math facts because some fourth graders can already see where it's going to happen. And now let me count by 8. 8, 16, 24. Oh, since I was keeping my eye on it, I don't even have to go any further because I see it's going to become 24ths. Okay, so I need to multiply 5/6 by 1, 2, 3, 4 to get my equivalent fraction. So 5 times 4 is 20. 6 times 4 is 24. And that's good because I'm wanting the denominator of 24ths. All right, now 7/8. This one I'm going to multiply by 3. So numerator and denominator by 3. So 7 times 3 is 21. 8 times 3 is 24. Oh, good. I accomplished my goal of common denominator. So now I need to just think, well, which one is greater? Well, if I look here, this is like using 20 of my 24 pieces of pizza or 20 of my 24 brownies. And this is using 21 of my 24 brownies or 21 of my 24 pieces of pizza. Same sizes, but I'm just using one more. So if 21 24ths is greater, that means 7/8 is greater. Just like I got here. Same answer, but just different strategies. So it should work that way. So use this when you are trying to compare fractions. Make them have a common numerator denominator. Circle what you're focusing on. Find the multiples until you find one that's common. And then just make sure you multiply the numerator and the denominator so you can find equivalent fractions and just compare those equivalent fractions. All right, so use this when you are comparing fractions.